Hi, I'm Will Cedric.
Hi, I'm Will Bales.
And this is Inside the Bot. Hi, Will. How's it going, man?
I'm doing great, Will. How are you doing?
I'm doing alright. It's a bit weird that you're not Gabe, though.
If you want to call me Gabe, I will accept it.
I might slip into that. But for anyone who doesn't know who you are, obviously they're idiots. But just tell us about yourself, man.
I'm Will Bales. I'm the team captain of HyperShock on BattleBots and ABC. I'm Gabe's American equivalent.
I think you're a bit better. You've won a televised fight, haven't you?
Well, yeah, but we'll see how Gabe does in the future. He's just not had his opportunity yet.
He's got a lovely bot.
He does.
And I can't wait to see it.
I like it.
So, you're American.
Yeah, unfortunately.
I now have to question your love of Robot Wars.
Okay. To explain myself, I was born in 1992, and I was around a whole bunch of people that were BattleBots competitors. But I actually ended up watching more Robot Wars than BattleBots just because of how old I was. You know, I was 9 or 10 years old when BattleBots went off the air, but Robot Wars was playing on BBC America for 3-4 years after that. So I actually remember Thermidor 2 as my favorite robot of all time.
Well, now I feel like you're more of an expert than me. I'm kind of worried. But it's okay.
I'm sure that's the extent of my knowledge.
It's okay because you're meant to be the expert.
Oh boy.
You are our star.
All right, I'll try not to mess up.
I think we'll be okay.
Yeah.
Obviously, I have to ask you which is better, BattleBots or Robot Wars?
I think they're different. I watched the first episode of Robot Wars, and it's a different format. I like that they're different.
I like that too.
They do two different things. One of the things that I appreciated is that there are robots like Nuts.
Yes.
Because Nuts would not have gotten into BattleBots at all. It would have been destroyed in its first match because they would have placed it against Tombstone, and no one would have been brave enough to do it, and no one would have been brave enough to let it in. So robots like that, different ideas, like Killy Cranky. I like the diversity of the field for Robot Wars, and I think that at least for a television show, the house bots are a cool idea.
Yeah.
It's just that the Americans think that we don't need no stinking house bots because we've got plenty of damage to dish out ourselves.
I mean, they still have the hazards though in America, so it's kind of
right, and we still have the hazards. It's definitely interesting to look at like this week 1 bracket where there's 2 spinners. Carbide's obviously
it's a beast.
It's Carbide. It is an amazing thing, and Killy Cranky did have a spinner on it, and the General had those big saws. But if you look at like the equivalent, random, 8 robots from BattleBots, you'd have like half of them high kinetic energy spinners, and it's a different field.
I think it's just a lot more refined and polished on BattleBots.
It's a lot more dangerous,
whereas it's
a lot more expensive.
Yeah, there's a lot more kind of characterful robots on Robot Wars.
Yes, definitely.
So we'll do it inside the shop. I have to say inside the shop. Gabe likes it when I say inside the shop.
Inside the shop, I have been working on different zanier ideas.
Okay.
Working on some work things for real life, but I have a hankering for a walking robot. I really want a walking robot.
Oh no.
And
don't do this to me.
It crushes me because I know in my heart that no matter what I build, it will be ruined. It will be tombstoned.
Yeah.
But I really have this urge to build a walking robot. It needs to be something different. I love HyperShock. I don't want to stop competing with it. But I would just love to do like the Mark Citrakian style thing where you just have something totally out there, totally off the wall. And if it could actually do something and win a fight, that would be awesome.
But I think that's what everyone thinks when they start building their walking robot. They're like, "Oh man, this is going to be so cool." I mean, it won't win BattleBots, but it might take someone out. But,
yeah.
I think,
and then it gets trashed.
and then its circular saw just drags itself along the battle box and into a wall, and then from that point on, it's dead.
Well, the Walden Overlord, I think, gave people hope that someone was willing to make something that clearly didn't have a chance at the top, but was different and novel. So kudos to Rob Knight for doing it. And kudos to BattleBots for not putting it up against Tombstone in the first damn match.
Now, we're going a bit off track here. This is the Robot Wars inside the bot. Yes. And for anyone unfamiliar with these robots we're talking about, they're around on YouTube. All the fights have been fully put up on YouTube, I think, so far. But check them out. So. Obald Overlord is a crazy, humanoid robot. And Rex is like a robot that moves, it walks about, and it's really crap, but it's really cool to see. And that's the extent. That's it. We're not talking about any more BattleBots.
Yep, that's it.
I'm sorry, everyone. So news. I don't think there's really been any news apart from Robot Wars coming back.
Yeah, which is exciting.
And Gabe's gone on holiday.
Yeah.
He won't be here next week. However, a bit of news. For the BattleBots episode that we're going to be doing this week, Ed Hoppit is going to join me, and he's going to be co-hosting with me, just like Will has today.
Oh, great!
Ed Hoppit, he knows his bots. He's on Robot Wars with Storm 2, and he was on BattleBots with Photon Storm. So it should be good. Tune into that one. On to Robot Wars.
Yes.
Now
on to Robot Wars. How exciting! It's nice to see it back.
Amazing to see it back. And for anyone listening in, anyone who follows us on Twitter and Facebook, you would have been excited to hear the words of Dave Moulds, who was going to be in this episode as a guest. In the final hour, the final minute, we were setting up Skype to do the interview. He had to cancel on us. He will be back on Robot Wars. Hopefully we'll get a chat to him then. But yeah, I'm sorry he's not here. Hope everything's all right with you, Dave. On to the fights. So, the show's format, 2 4-way rumbles, 4 robots remain, then they all fight each other. And then there's a league format, and then the top 2 robots fight each other.
Yeah, I like the format in the sense that you get to the whole heat in an entire episode. You don't have to jump around piecemeal.
What do you think you get from that rather than like a round of 32, a huge bracket?
Well, you get to feel the whole excitement train from here's a whole bunch of robots. Which one do you think is going to win? Who do you think is going to get to the grand final? And watch it through to fruition and see who wins. I was rooting for Carbide because it's the most BattleBots like robot in the heat. And when it was not doing well, I was actually getting nervous. I was like, but it has to win. So I mean, it certainly got me all hot and bothered about it. I like it.
Yeah, I like the anticipation of who's going to get out of the group, and I think you get to see the whole journey of the group.
Yeah,
in one show, which is really cool. Should we get on to the first battle?
Certainly.
So, talking about the robots, we had Terahertz, made by John Reed, who also has an amazing robot called Beta in BattleBots, and he's always had his Axe bots. Early Robot Wars fans and BattleBots fans will know him.
Yeah, he's got Axe bots nailed. And
this one is looking amazing. It's got that wedge of hardened steel, I guess. Do you reckon?
Yeah, it's probably Hardox.
Yeah. And then he's got the polycarb on top, and it just... Do you fear polycarb?
I've avoided it for my use in robots, but I think for blunt impact, it certainly works. I mean, John's been using it for years, and it still works.
I mean, they use it on the arenas, so it must be pretty solid. Yeah,
I think in the U.S., because of all the spinners, plastic doesn't hold up as well. I think up against hammers and flippers and not as sharp spinners, it works great. So it makes total sense in this event.
I suppose he's got that little Hardox wedge. Should any spinners come at him?
Yeah, yeah, and it definitely works.
Yeah. And what about the axe? What do you make of an axe as a weapon?
I've always yearned for a better axe. I think that John, through Beta and Terahertz, has done two totally different things. He's gone the electric route and the pneumatic route, and both are at max performance. And I mean, they seem pretty effective, and they're controllable, which is important.
So the axe on terahertz, that's the pneumatic one, am I right?
Yeah.
What are the differences?
I think you can get a little bit more power out of pneumatics, but the problem is that you've only got a certain number of shots. So if you keep missing a whole bunch, then it's bad. For Beta, he can, it's a giant E-Tech motor. I think it's the same motor that Carbide used, or a close variation of the motor Carbide used. And so he can change the speed. He can, he can move it around a little bit with more finesse than he can with terahertz.
Makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
On to Razor.
Razor. What a beautiful machine.
I mean, just so attractive. And for anyone who missed it, we caught up with Ian Lewis in the last podcast. He spoke a lot about Warhead and Razor and just his feelings about coming back to Robot Wars. And it sounds like it was a bit of an emotional roller coaster, but we won't dwell too much on that. He did mention, however, that they put new batteries into Razor and saved like 10 kilograms. I think he's 20 kilograms under the weight limit, which has been risen for this year. So just by putting LiPo batteries in, he's got 20 kilograms left to play with.
Did he end up using the 20 kilos somewhere else? That's a lot of weight.
I don't know. I didn't, because it was before Robot Wars had gone out, I didn't want to ask too many questions because it felt a bit spoilery.
Man, I'm going to have to ask him.
But I don't think we really saw anything new on Razor.
Yeah, it seemed like the old Razor with, lipos instead of lead acids or whatever he used. It seemed pretty nimble.
It could also be... So Robot Wars was filmed in March.
Mm-hmm.
BattleBots was filmed in April.
Yeah.
People who have robots in both have to split their time.
It's absolutely crazy.
Yeah, I mean, building one robot is crazy enough, right?
Yeah. And for BattleBots, they built an entirely new head for Warhead, so I could totally understand them not having a whole lot of time.
Yeah. I mean, I think Simon Scott took lead on the head itself, but the whole mechanism, I guess, must have been a massive team effort. And the flames and stuff they put into Warhead.
Oh, yeah.
So, and I think they're more behind getting Warhead some accolades because Razor's done it all, really.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But it was great to see it. See it. But I mean, which are the big iconic Robot Wars robots for you?
Razor for sure. Hypnodisc. I remember a lot of them. Thermidor 2, I think, was my favorite because I just loved that it was a lobster for some reason.
Oh, that's Thermidor the lobster. Okay.
As an 11-year-old,
I mean, why not? Yeah,
the lobster. So
we can expect a walking lobster bot from you in the future.
Yeah. A walking mutant lobster would be fantastic.
I think that's got to be the aim.
I'll compete it in Robot Wars if they let me in.
That would be amazing. Just talk to the Thermidor guys. They'd probably let you on. It's Thermidor 3.
I'll come in a mask, so no one will know that I'm there, but I'll be there.
I think you should rip it off at the end as you get the Robot Wars trophy.
Yeah, when I throw everyone under the bus.
Ha! I'm an American. I've won your stupid show. And then you fly off.
Yeah.
What do you think about, iconic robots? Chaos 2.
Chaos 2 is a heck of a robot. I mean, really well built.
Because to me, the three big robots in my head were Razor, Chaos 2, and Hypnodisc.
Yeah, they were pretty evenly matched.
I was really sad not to see Chaos 2 back.
Yeah, people, it's what, a decade on? Yeah. Some people can dust off the old robots and build something new.
An old flipper's not going to do that great.
Yeah. I think the extra weight bonus could have come in handy for extra armor against some of the higher energy spinners like Carbide.
Yeah, but I think with a flipper, you're definitely total rebuilding, right?
Yeah, probably at this point.
So maybe it was a case of investing a lot of time and money into something that they couldn't get together in that short space of time.
Yeah, the turnaround time was bonkers. It was like a month, if I recall correctly, or something. It was not a whole lot of time. I remember hearing about the renewed series, and then like a month and a half later, there was the event.
Yeah, I mean, Gabe disappeared off into a shed for a good few weeks.
That's what you got to do.
And then a robot emerged with him.
Yeah, it's the only thing you can do.
Yeah, and if you haven't got the time to take off work or something, then you're a bit screwed.
Yeah.
So, moving on, Killy Cranky.
Killy Cranky was a different design. I don't think I've ever seen anything like it.
It's so weird. I mean,
I think
he built it out of 2 bits of drain pipe or something.
It was well built. I mean, it was all like 304 stainless. It was clearly someone with a lot of expertise took their time welding it. It looked very nice. It almost reminded me of I think it was S3 from the old series. That was a tube body with a vertical spinner. To me, it looked like it was going to be very hard to drive, that the disc would just flop around.
Yeah, I thought that's very wide as well.
Yeah, it's very wide. I think a wide stance would be in their favor if it was a really high kinetic energy weapon, but it seemed to be a fast, low power weapon, so I'm not sure how much that really helped them.
500 RPM on that? Not really going to do much.
500 RPM, that's it? Aw.
You said it would be like 500 to 1,000.
Aw, man.
That was the kid, though, so I don't know.
Yeah. You Brits got to work on your spinning weapons.
You're gonna help us, right?
Yeah, totally.
When you come over with your walking lobster, it will have a drum spinner, right?
I don't know. Maybe I'll try something different. Maybe I'll mess up a flipper, or maybe I'll make a razor clone.
Oh,
walking razor clone.
That'd be amazing. So, I thought it would be tough to grab, though, that little Killy Cranky.
Yeah, and I mean, it was very wide, so I think for a control robot, it would have been pretty easy to grab onto it. But as far as like piercing into it or getting a gash out of it, yeah, I mean, it looked actually pretty durable.
Exposed wheels, always dangerous.
I've recently come around on exposed wheels. I think it comes down to driving. And if you think you're a good enough driver for exposed wheels, then you can put that weight into armor or the weapon or batteries or whatever else you want. It's definitely risky.
I'm seeing the headlines in the newspapers tomorrow. Will Bales thinks he's good enough as a driver to have exposed wheels. The audacity of the man.
That jerk. It's one of the many design choices you have to make, and sometimes it's worth it. Usually, if you're not going to guard your wheels, you're going to have some sort of front armor, some sort of front wedge, some front plow that you can aim towards your opponent, so that it doesn't just instantly rip your wheels off.
Yeah, and now we get to the favorite of the group. Nuts.
Ah, man, what a robot.
What a great robot. It's a box with a couple of wheels on the side and a nice frame around it. We've not really been describing the robots as yet, but I think that's basically all of it.
Yeah, but it's so cool. The frame around the body of the robot, when I first saw it, I was like, that's sideways and it's all crooked and that's awful. And then when you see it in the first fight and it starts getting flipped over or something, it just does this cartwheel and all of a sudden is right back up again. And it's awesome.
And the flails, they're not really going to do much.
No, but they certainly look cool and it's different. And, they could theoretically get them hung up in someone's weapon.
But I'm not sure about that. I don't really like that.
Yeah.
I don't know what the rules are around entanglement in Robot Wars, but...
Entanglement is a really dicey art.
Yeah. And I think we kind of we'll touch on that a bit later because there is a bit of entanglement.
Yes, there is.
At one point. But it's going to be a nuisance. It's got mini bots. It's just going to be a nuisance.
Oh, it is.
And it's going to be tough to flip over, really.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough to flip over. If you're going to kill it, you have to either dismantle it or flip it out of the arena. It should be interesting to watch. It should be fun to watch. The the gentlemen who built it are certainly well dressed.
Oh yeah, I mean they're just having fun.
Oh, they're having a great time.
That's the big difference between BattleBots and Robot Wars is that they'll put those kind of kooky, eccentric British guys in.
Yeah, we need more kooky British people.
Let's get on to the fight.
Yeah.
So from the off, the fight kind of looked like Terahertz and Nuts were getting involved with each other. Razor and Killy Cranky were kind of having separate tussles, which is kind of what four-way battles come down to normally.
Yeah, it's not surprising. I wouldn't be surprised if Razor and Terahertz were like, hey, let's just take these guys out and then we'll go.
Yeah.
So
I think that's what was expected from everyone watching.
I think that's what I expected, right out of the gate. So, Razor went over to Killy Cranky and then tried to get a bite on him, but because that frame is all round tubing, they couldn't actually get a bite.
Yeah, they got it in near the weapon at one point.
Yeah.
And I thought maybe they're going to do some damage.
Yeah, I was a little disappointed that they couldn't do the old school Razor trick of just piercing a giant hole in everyone.
Razor wasn't really able to get any damage off.
Right.
And Terahertz was having trouble landing any blows on Nuts.
Yeah, because what are you going to do? You just run into it and hope that you can hit it with the hammer. That's about it. With the
and the pit got activated.
Yeah, I was surprised how fast the pit is now. And there's no warning at all.
No.
And when the pit got activated, Nuts was just passing.
He was nearly in there, yeah.
Nearly got stuck.
And then at some point, I don't know when this happened, but Razor just pierced a mini-bot and was going around with it, stuck on the end.
Yeah, that was really great.
It's just a carnage in there. I don't know when that happened. Nuts was flailing around at Terahertz.
Yeah, one of the great parts about these melees is that there's never a dull moment. Something's always going on.
It's just craziness. And then Ian Lewis turns to Simon Scott and he says, "Want to drop him in the pit?" I don't know if they were talking about Nuts or their own robot, but it wasn't nice. There was a lot more tussling, and then Razor's got Killy Cranky numbed in its little jaw.
Yeah, pretty good hold on.
Starts rolling him over to the pits, gets him just teetering on the edge, and then I'll let you take over from here.
He was trying to carefully put Killy Cranky in the pit, and you got to open the jaws and push forward a little bit at the same time. And as they were doing that, one of Killy Cranky's wheels, caught traction on the ground again and spun them around just enough that Razor and Killy Cranky both fell into the pit at the same time.
Around Britain, 25-year-old boys and girls were crying because their childhood favourite had gone out.
Yeah, and now Nuts is winning. Yeah,
Nuts just sheerly through picking the right guy to go against in Terahertz.
So, moral of the story, if you're going to pick a fight, don't do Razor or Killy Cranky.
Because that's mutually assured destruction right there.
Apparently.
Today we learned. Oh, so that was Battle 1. The winners were Terahertz and Nuts. It's good news Terahertz, though, because for me, one of my favourites in the tournament.
Yeah, I definitely like Terahertz. I think they've got the right combination of novelty and effective weapon and really good armor.
And seriously well-built robot,
yeah. Yeah, it's got it nailed, for sure.
Battle 2, the other the other four-way battle. We had the General.
The General. What a cool thing. Yeah. I love it. I love those giant saws.
I love a sawbot, so I'm liking the two spinning saw blades on the front. It's got two saw blades on the front, a nice little box behind holding everything important, and then some massive exposed wheels either side.
Yeah. Yeah, those are some pretty big wheels. That's old school BattleBots, like overkill size wheels.
Unless you can drive like Will Bales, you can't get away with that.
Nobody can get away with that because they had a little wedge in the front, but you can't get anyone on that wedge without them also ripping your wheels in half.
So I was just waiting for them to get destroyed. Really, Behemoth.
Yep.
A classic.
Yeah.
Robot Wars robot.
Definitely.
Pleased to see it, but it hasn't really changed.
No. Seems to be a little refined, little tweaks here and there. But otherwise, in the same sense that Razer just kind of threw some new batteries, probably some new electronics in.
But I do know for a fact that they tour Behemoth around the UK, and it shows up to events and stuff. Mm-hmm. So they've obviously kept, tweaking away at it.
Clearly, which is definitely a good thing.
Razer, I think, probably isn't allowed to do that because they had a toy deal with Robot Wars. So and when I spoke to Ian Lewis, he did mention the toy deal, but he also mentioned he wanted to get machine time. Like that was his main motivation for doing Robot Wars. Really, was just getting to drive Razer again. Behemoth, on the other hand, has been to events. I've seen it at an event. It's very heavily armoured. Its only real weapon is still armour. Yeah,
that is one major bonus of Behemoth and those types of flippers, where it's a giant plow that flips. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's just a solid robot, I'd say.
Yes, definitely. Definitely one to look out for in the heat.
And then we had Bonk.
Bonk was cool. I liked it. It was a different type of axe. I think it was it pneumatic? I think it was pneumatic.
Yeah, well, it was. Yeah, because they mentioned CO2.
Yeah, I think they had. It was interesting. It looked well built when they had the shell off.
It reminded me of an old school robot.
Yeah, it had some of those old school qualities. Seems pretty well armored, I think, with the extra 10 kilos that will do some good.
They looked like a thick shell they were putting on top.
Yeah, it did. It looked heavy and hard to weld, so it's probably good for them.
And then we had this. I don't know where they found these guys. It didn't really look like they knew how to build a robot.
Oh yeah.
It was called Carbide, I think it was.
Yeah. I think that was it. It was all right. It was.
Yeah. No, obviously, this is the beast, beast of the heat.
By far, my favorite in the heat. What I think should win and should be able to win with modern technology, modern batteries, modern motors, modern weapon style. I feel like it should be able to dominate the heat.
Oh yeah, and it just looks solid. It's got the protected wheels, which I love. Yeah. Obviously, he's decided he can't drive like Will Bales, so he needs some protection.
I'm going to saying that, won't I?
It's so much. And the spinning blade, it doesn't look that massive, that spinning blade, but I've been spoiled by BattleBots.
I will admit that at first look, it doesn't look like a very heavy, scary weapon compared to BattleBots, but they've got a big motor behind it. They've got lots of power and redundancy behind it.
Yeah.
I think it's got enough follow-through to really be able to do some damage.
You get a higher speed from not having such a heavy one, I imagine.
Yeah.
And you can get it up to speed quicker.
They were going pretty fast. 2,300 RPM. So that's pretty fast.
That'll do it, yeah.
For a horizontal spinner that's pretty big, that's plenty fast.
He mentions a tip speed of 200 miles an hour.
Yeah, that's plenty. Trust me.
So the fight. Let's get to it. Straight away, we have the 2v2s.
Yep.
Well, the 1v1s. The two 1v1s, there we go.
Yeah.
we had Carbide was going for Bonk. And Behemoth was going for the General.
Yeah.
Straight away.
It instantly became a blur. Like, I was trying to keep track of everything that's going on.
These four-way fights are tough.
Yeah.
I had to watch it a few times. And Carbide's not really spinning up to its top speed, it seems.
Yeah.
And we hear later there were transmitter problems and stuff. I think, did you say transmitter or did you say transmission?
I think they said transmitter issues. I think it was a bind failure, so they had to turn the transmitter off and on again.
And then Behemoth flips Bonk.
Yep. Yeah, Bonk didn't seem to be much of a contender in it pretty quickly.
No, yeah. And Carbide hits the General. Still not really getting up speed, though.
Yeah. Later on, the death hum is referenced, and anytime you hear a big spinning weapon do the death hum, you know that they're going to be dishing out some hurt.
Oh, yeah. So then the three of them kind of meet in the middle. Behemoth takes a hit on the scoop from the General as Carbide's behind him, and it gets flipped and self-rights straight away because it's Behemoth. It's built to do that.
Yeah.
The pit gets activated.
Yeah.
Carbide. Then in the chaos, Carbide takes off the General's wheels. Well, one of them.
Yeah, that was good.
And then that's pretty much it. General and Bonk are eliminated because Bonk is flipped and he's bleeding CO2 everywhere.
Yeah, I can't get self-righted anymore.
And
the General is de-wheeled.
General's only got one wheel. He's got one leg.
The General had a war injury and had
he's got a war wound. Yeah. So that didn't really go too well for those two.
No.
Carbine and Behemoth, though, you could have expected them to go through.
Yeah, in the first heat, I thought that Razor and Terahertz were going to win. This one, I thought Carbide and Behemoth were going to win. So it was nice that at least I was 50% right.
Yeah. We've got Carbide, Behemoth, Terahertz, and Nuts are through to the head-to-heads. The first head-to-head, Carbide against Terahertz.
Yeah. Looking at it was... I looked at this as a modern, a truly modern robot fight where there's a scary spinner and then something else.
Okay.
And Terahertz, like we said before, has really good armor, and John Reed's obviously an amazing driver, and lots of experience.
So much experience,
and it's a reliable weapon usually. So they should be able to, I think, outmaneuver Carbide. One of the problems with horizontal spinners is just general lack of control. So if they can take advantage of that and keep on them so that they can't get the death hum up, then they could actually, beat Carbide.
Yeah. So you've pretty much explained what happened in the fight. Amazing driving from Terahertz. He was all over Carbide from the start. And then Carbide gets kind of stuck on the flame pit at one point.
Yeah, it looked like they were... I mean, the wheels were moving, but they were having clearance issues with the wheels.
It looks like the grate on the flame pit is slightly lower than the floor of the arena.
Yep, that'll do it.
And that'll do it. But I think Kill-A-Lot, the driver of Kill-A-Lot, saw that would not be a fair way for that fight to end and pushed him off a little bit.
Yeah, I was happy about that.
And then, so Terahertz continues to shove Carbide around. The pit gets activated. And amazing driving from John Reed. And we haven't really realised that his axe isn't working.
Yeah. It was probably a good tactic to keep it out of the way to avoid getting ripped off. But, at the end, he's like, oh, yeah, by the way, it didn't work. So,
yeah, so he's just shoving him around. There's not really much to say apart from he pushes him into the pit.
Yeah, he totally outdrove Carbide, deserved the win. Yeah, not much more to say.
Yeah, I mean, Terahertz gets the 3 points. We'll go on to the next head-to-head. We've got Nuts against Behemoth. Now, Nuts who...
Nuts.
Nuts. I don't know what he's going to do here. He's against a brick, essentially. A brick with a scoop on the front.
Yeah, if I'm Nuts, my only hope is to let Behemoth make a mistake.
Yeah, but these are experienced guys. You've got to know that's not that likely to happen.
But that's really their only hope. They've got the mini bots. Maybe they could high center them and gently nudge them toward the pit. But it's an uphill battle for Nuts for sure. Nuts
is as close as we've got to a beach ball.
Yes.
In Robot Wars, and it's one step closer. I'm all for that. This whole fight is Nuts getting pushed about.
Yeah.
I
was surprised that Behemoth couldn't get a better flip on Nuts, but I guess because it's so
It's got the
massive,
Zimmer frame on the outside. How can it do it?
Yeah, it's just... Yeah. I guess it was good for Nuts because they couldn't throw him out of the arena, but, Nuts didn't have a very offensive tactic to take.
It's just a nuisance. So its flare is completely ineffective. And it's just, it gets pushed into dead metal at one point, and dead metal does nothing. I was hoping to see it just go straight through that frame, but no.
Yeah, what the heck?
I think when he grabbed him, his saw was already on the frame.
No.
So
Dang.
If he'd pulled the head back and then gone back in, I think he would have been okay. But you could see it was kind of bending a bit the way he grabbed it. And then Behemoth pushes Nuts about into the pit activation. Pit gets activated. And then Behemoth flips the mini-bot. And that was probably the best bit of the fight for me.
Yeah,
the
mini-bot going 15, 20 feet in the air was pretty great.
It looked like it was going to hit the lights. And then straight after that, Matilda flips Behemoth with the tail.
Yeah, that was a pretty good gash out of it. It didn't really linger on it much, but that was it went right through the side armor on Behemoth.
Powerful house robots this year.
Yes.
And then it flips Nuts as well with its tail. That happens too. But Nuts doesn't mind because it's Nuts.
Yeah.
The Behemoth just can't get the flip it needs because of that Zimmer frame on the outside of Nuts.
Yeah.
Kind of just stopping it and getting to the body of it.
Yeah, I guess kudos to Nuts for figuring out the one thing that Behemoth can't flip.
Yeah.
It's fun to watch Behemoth struggle.
Yeah, that is good. But at the same time, I root for the guy who's struggling in that situation. Like, it feels like it would be just if it were to get a massive flip off.
Yeah, it would be nice if in the last couple of seconds they did.
But it didn't happen. There was pushing and there was some flailing, and it went to the judges, who naturally went for Behemoth. Yeah, but you've got to say the control on Nuts was all right. Yeah. No damage or aggression, really. Well, aggression, but ultimately pointless aggression.
Yeah.
but Behemoth won that one. Took it into the judges. And won.
Rightfully so.
Yeah. I don't know how I feel about the 2 points for a judge's win.
Yeah. Well, I guess if you kill the other robot, then you deserve more points. I guess it makes sense.
Well, in that case, shouldn't the other robot get 1 point?
Well, that's what I was thinking that they were going to do, and then the loser got nothing. So I agree with you. They should have added 1 point. We should petition Robot Wars to add that extra point.
Maybe they'll rethink it. Maybe they'll listen to Inside the Bot and think, actually, the Wills have got a point here. Yeah,
listen to the American.
Oh, God, don't say that. Right, head-to-head 3. Let's not linger on that comment. Behemoth against Terahertz.
It's a pretty fair match. Terahertz should be able to self-right, and so unless Behemoth gets a really good flip out of the arena or into the pits or into the corner patrol zones or something, then Terahertz is just going to keep coming back around and hitting him on the top. And it always seemed that Behemoth didn't have very good armor on the top, so I was thinking that Terahertz might take this.
Well, you were wrong.
Dang it.
Because the axe wasn't working on Terahertz.
Man.
I don't know why. I'm not sure they know why.
John's a smart guy. He should be able to figure this out. So clearly they were having some serious issues.
I think they say another transmitter issue.
Yeah, and they ran out of time to be able to test it, so they weren't sure going in.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate.
And it's a shame. He was driving really well, though, again.
Yeah, I mean...
At the start, he was driving really well, but it's one of those things, it's inevitable. When you're facing, like, Behemoth, they're going to get a flip.
Yeah. You can run around as much as you want and hit him from the side, but they will get you over.
If you spend 3 minutes in a box with someone, they're going to find you. Yeah. And they did, and they flipped him. A Dead Metal had a little nibble. Yeah,
I was secretly hoping that Dead Metal would hit the CO2 tank and it would blow up, but oh well.
and
they nicked it. They definitely nicked it.
Yeah, I mean, he says it took a little scrape at the end. So we had the fourth head-to-head after that, and that was Carbide against Nuts.
What an unfairly matched fight.
Now,
yeah.
It was a little bit like the classic fight that happens in our kitchen, which is fruit versus the blender.
Yeah.
Now,
that's a pretty good analogy.
Yeah. And you can put nuts in a blender.
It's not going to end well for the nuts, though.
No. And this is exactly what happened here. And there's hit after hit, just non-stop. What's nuts really hoping for in that situation? Just
They were hoping to survive. Or that, again, Carbide made a mistake.
And it did hit the wall at one point.
Yep, it did hit the wall a couple times.
Which could be dangerous for you if you've got a massively fast spinner.
Yeah, if you lose control and skid across the arena into the pit, then you're dead.
Into the pit, a CPZ, or But I mean, it was hit after hit. The bearings came off first hit, I think. One of the first hits. Then the frame came off.
That's when you knew that it was just done.
That's when you get a bit worried. And then a wheel came off with motor attached.
And then got tossed out of the arena.
And, we got a little wall there. And then it was just dead.
Yeah, completely dead.
I think he should have gone in for another hit, personally.
I think they did enough. I think they were sufficiently effective. And
just to make sure, though, because it did still have one wheel on it.
Right, well, yeah, it could be pining. It's not dead yet.
But Carbide comprehensively won. And then they helped him rebuild it, which is nice.
Yeah. Well, not that it was going to do a whole lot, but it is in their advantage for Nuts to do well against Terahertz.
Well, you say it's not going to do a lot.
Well, it's Nuts.
In the end, it was... them helping them build it is probably
a good thing.
One of the main reasons that this group ended up how it did.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that.
In the next two fights, that will be revealed. Because head-to-head 5 was Behemoth against Carbide.
Yep.
And I saw this going in the way of Behemoth.
Yeah, in a similar sense that Carbide lost to Terahertz, I was concerned that was going to happen. Their only hope was to be able to get a good hit from the side and start taking chunks out of the wedge or the front flipper or damage the mechanism somehow.
Yeah. But it didn't really go like that. Because you would think that front scoop would be just completely effective against them.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's all about aiming. If you let them nick the corner, then it's game over. And, I mean, that's what Carbide did. They got a little, just a nibble on the side and started peeling away, and they got a pretty big gash in it.
Now, I think this fight was won straight away. When Carbide avoids Behemoth coming straight for it, it kind of goes off to the side, gets just out of the way, and is able to spin up. Yeah,
and you can hear the difference. It's terrifying to me now. I'm not sure if it's terrifying to everyone, but when I hear that noise, I just start to cringe a little bit.
Unless it's coming out of your own robot.
Yeah.
And then you start to salivate.
I just get more nervous.
You know it's either going to kill them or you at that.
I just hope that my robot doesn't blow up.
Yeah. Especially it's a Will Bales robot, so it has just been finished.
Exactly. It's got
walking up to the arena.
It's got a wet coat of paint on it for sure.
As Greg told us all. You're never ready.
He not to hijack the discussion, but he is completely accurate. That said, we always deliver.
Never ready, but always deliver.
Yeah.
That should be on the back of your t-shirts.
I might adopt that. That's pretty good. Never ready, always deliver.
So the fight went. He managed to avoid, the incoming Behemoth. Behemoth.
Yeah.
And 7 hits he got on the scoop in total before the pit was activated. And then 2 more hits, and Behemoth does that weird thing with the flipper, and it turns out it's not connected anymore.
Yeah, it's really bad.
And it's kind of flipping itself. Or slash being flipped. I couldn't really decide. And then at that point, the pit's been activated. Carbide reverses into it, pushes it into the pits.
Yeah.
So, Carbide won. Pretty comprehensive.
Yeah, deserved it. It was all, like you said, it was all based on that initial potential contact.
Nicking the edge.
If Carbide had been hit by Behemoth and they couldn't get their bar spinning, then it probably
It's getting pushed
just
around
like
for 3 minutes.
Fight. Exactly.
Okay. So Carbide, not lucky, skillful to avoid that first hit, and just, pummeled them from that point onwards.
Yeah.
Which is, it's a weird way that a spinner like that works, because you always assume they're going to get that just one big hit.
Yeah, but it's a test. I think it's a testament to how well Behemoth is put together. There are some robots that can take a licking and keep on ticking.
I like it. I like that turn of phrase.
That's an Americanism for you.
Yeah, overly Americanism. It's just like
it can touch.
I'm just imagining
on ticking. It's beautiful.
I'm just imagining you sat there in some cowboy boots and cowboy hat.
Woo! That one can take a licking and keep on ticking. I like Robot Wars.
Damn robots sure can war. Anyway, head-to-head 6. Before we get too carried away.
Yeah.
Terahertz and Nuts. And you're thinking Terahertz is going to get that massive axe hit because Nuts is, it's trashed at this point.
Yeah.
You're just thinking it's going to get that hit and the frame's going to fall off. And then it's going to get another hit and a wheel's going to fall off. You're thinking it's going to be the Carbide fight over again.
I didn't think it was going to be that bad, but I knew that Terahertz was going to dominate the fight. They were going to outdrive them. They were going to outmaneuver them. They were going to push them around. And Nuts was just going to be sitting there, spinning their chains around, hoping for the best.
And I got, I'm going to say it, a little bit furious watching this fight.
I know why. You're mad because of the ring coming off.
Well, yeah.
Getting caught.
A little bit furious. So Terahertz is pushing Nuts about. This axe is working, finally. But it's not really getting any crazy hits off. Then the ring, the protective ring comes off and attaches itself in the most fucking annoying way. So the flail hoops through this little hole in John's amazing creation. There's a little hole. And I think that's probably for, that they pull the tags out, so the robot becomes live.
I guess it was.
It looks like
a small little place, and I was trying to watch, frame by frame, figuring out how it was attached and how I would try to dislodge it.
You could dislodge it, man. The end of that flail has gone into like the top of a cup. It's kind of that size hole.
Yeah.
It
was a little barb
the polycarb
that got caught inside, and that was it.
And it was just attached to the rest of the fight, and I was hoping they would have stopped it or something. Just
yeah, that kind of sucks.
I don't know what the rule is on that, and probably Gabe would have more of an insight.
Yeah, he probably knows the rules better. If it was me, I may have stopped and been like, "Hey, what the heck?"
Yeah.
But a testament to John is that he kept driving.
He doesn't seem happy about it, though.
He doesn't seem happy about it, but I think the important thing, again, it was Nuts, so it wasn't very high threat level. But if it was another more dangerous robot and he had stopped, he could have lost an advantage. Instead of chasing, he would have been, being chased. And if you take a second to say like, hey, and stare at the judges or at the referee, and meanwhile the other guy's still going, that.
But they don't really have a referee in that box, do they?
Yeah, it's interesting.
It's kind of just done on goodwill, I guess. And so the pit got activated. There was some good axe hits, but he always just felt like he was, he had a ball and chain attached to him.
Yeah, I was hoping that he would start spinning around in circles and hit Nuts with their own flails.
With their own weapon. Well, I call it a weapon. Not really. And at one point, Nuts was teetering on the pit edge.
Yeah, they were really close.
It looked close, and Shunt got a hold of Nuts at one point, and I was really annoyed to not see him use his flipper, because it was the flipper end.
He was trying to get, I think, an axe hit on him, but was unsuccessful.
Now, Shunt's flipper, we haven't seen it yet, but it's been souped up.
Really?
Yeah, it is.
And it was a force to be reckoned with in the past. So
yeah, it's a good flipper now. And Matilda's tusks as well.
Yes, I've seen footage of Matilda working.
Yeah. I mean, do you remember they used to just be more lifting, but now they're properly flipping.
Yeah, I like that. That's much better.
I mean, as annoyed as I am about this fight, Nuts does do a good job of avoiding terahertz.
Yeah, I think Nuts as good of a job as they could have done with Nuts.
I've got to give them credit for that.
Yeah,
and they're a nice.
And they're getting that far.
Yeah,
getting past the initial, elimination and still sticking it out is, and putting it back together after being demolished by Carbide. They certainly earned some brownie points.
Oh yeah, definitely. Oh, yeah.
Well, anyway, Terahertz won.
Terahertz won the judge's decision, so it only got 2 points. Now, if it had won all out and got 3 points, it would have beaten Behemoth, and it would have been facing Carbide in the final.
That would have been interesting.
Because it was 6-5-5 points-wise.
Yeah.
And Behemoth beat Terahertz, so Behemoth went into the heat final.
Right.
So, could
have been very different.
Carbide helping out Nuts.
Yeah, I think it went out in their favor because clearly Carbide could beat Behemoth and not Terahertz. Maybe it would have been different the second time around, but
and I think
you gotta wonder.
Yeah, I gotta feel sorry for John.
Yeah, I mean it's a really well built robot, and it's one of those, having reliability issues with a weapon is some days you're lucky and some days you're not.
Yeah. What is it that makes that sort of thing so finicky? Temperamental.
Yeah, it's not having a support line to be able to go call and say, hey, why isn't this working? Doesn't help. You're usually sleep deprived. You're usually, frantic, and everyone's yelling in your ear that you have to be ready for your next fight. And everything's going on. You're trying to absorb as much as possible, but meanwhile, your robot's not working.
Yeah.
And the most frustrating thing is when it doesn't work in a orientation that it did in the past.
Yeah.
It worked 5 minutes ago. Why isn't it working now? And now you have to go down the entire line. You have to look through all the electronics and figure out what's not working.
It's just a dark art.
It's a dark art, and like I said, sometimes you find it, sometimes you're lucky, sometimes it's a simple little thing, and sometimes it's so elusive that you don't have enough time to find it in the event.
And if you're alive,
and usually you'll find it on the way home. Like you'll be like, oh yeah, it was that. Dang it.
He'll be back.
Oh, most definitely with a new CO2 system.
Most certainly. Or a new guy that was supposed to test the axe.
Yeah, that looked a little
heated.
Testy there.
Heated, yeah. So we get to the heat final now. Behemoth against Carbide.
Should be a good fight. I mean, we already saw it. So
take 2.
I was interested to see how Behemoth would change their tactics based on having to fight Carbide. Because if I understand the way that the UK circuit works, there are basically no high speed, high energy spinners in the tournament. So the last time that Behemoth would have fought any big spinner may have been, I don't know, Hypnodisc back in early 2000.
Definitely Hypnodisc.
So at some level, I'm sure it was a bit of a shell shock to have to go fight up against something so different. And they've got the energy to dish out hits like Hypnodisc did in the past. Even, despite new armor and new techniques of doing things. Lithium polymer batteries have changed how the spinning weapons perform. Because you can get so much energy into a spinning
the high
weapon.
current you can put out now.
Yeah, you can put out thousands of amps. It's crazy. And I mean, it can be very dangerous, but the rewards are bonkers.
Yeah, so
before you get a new warhead like that, it's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, so before this was, the batteries would just would explode if you tried to arse out them, but now they can take it.
Yeah.
So we will talk about the final now.
Yeah.
There was a glancing blow at the start from Carbide. It didn't hit it that square on.
Right.
But then Go on.
I think they were doing a pretty good job of avoiding Behemoth, relatively speaking. But they weren't, if I recall correctly, they just weren't spinning up as quickly as before. I didn't hear the death hum as quickly.
Yeah. So maybe a bit injured.
Perhaps.
Behemoth
or
definitely
being,
injured.
Conservative.
Yeah, I guess.
You know, one of the concerns about big energy weapons is if you go too hard in the paint, that you might kill yourself. And so being conservative with your weapon, not straining your batteries or your weapon motor or your weapon controller, it's a tactic in itself.
So then it gets a heavier hit, and the transmission is damaged on Behemoth. What do you see happened here?
It looked like it was having transmitter issues, but it turned out that it was a mechanical failure in one of the wheels, and so the hub of the wheel, the plastic wheel, shattered into a whole bunch of little pieces and got stuck in the gears and the chains, and they were trying to throw the drivetrain in forward and reverse just to try to dislodge those little pieces of plastic. Behemoth, in seemingly trying to figure out why their robot wasn't working, was flailing on their transmitter stick, and when it finally gave free and started moving again, it was in the back position, and they drove in reverse directly into the pit at like full speed.
To the uninitiated, to the maybe the casual viewer, it looks like a very amateur fight.
I could understand that,
but
I think that from the driver's perspective, that is one of the most frustrating types of fights to lose. When it's just not working properly and you can't figure out why. And then you lose on something simple like we drove ourselves into the pit. At least if they had sat there and Carbide pushed them into the pit,
yeah.
They could have said, well, we were just dead and something failed. But now they have to deal with the guilt of, and the shame, the public humiliation.
It's got to be tough.
Of driving themselves into the pit.
But, unfortunately, at the end of it ended like that. Another comment on that fight. Carbide's weapon at the end.
Yeah, it wasn't spinning. What was that about? They could have been having issues. They did have some failure early on in the tournament. So maybe it was, a similar demon that they were fighting. Or they could have been preserving, and I'm not sure.
So we had a question from Rob.
Mm-hmm.
Guys, tip speed. What are the weapons really spinning at? I'm sure there's lots of bragging about speed. like he says, like boys in the playground.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of...
But who really has the fastest weapon? Is it a drum? Is it a disc? Or is it a bar? And who's making claims? And are they doing the maths?
So when people are calculating their tip speed, they are taking the theoretical 100% efficient speed of their motor, dividing it by their ratio to the weapon, and then calculating for the radius and taking that as your tip speed at 100%. Yeah, probably. And then assuming that is at peak 100% performance with zero losses, no heat loss, no friction loss, no air resistance. So you'll get we can spin it 300 miles an hour or some crazy fast number. But if you actually look at the numbers and then you take into account for losses and air resistance and what your batteries can really put out, it's usually much lower. I don't think anyone's done any live. Well, that's not true. At BattleBots for safety inspection, they were actually doing live RPM readings of the weapons to make sure that everyone was under 300 miles an hour tip speed, I think.
Do you know what yours came out at?
We ended up sticking around 200. We were geared for much higher than 300, and then they told us at the event that we had to keep it at 3. And that coupled with driving practicality and some electrical issues we were having. We were like, you know what? If it works at 6,000 RPM, let's keep it at 6,000 RPM. So, or 6 or 8,000. But we ended up, I don't think anyone really spun faster than around 200 miles an hour tip speed at BattleBots.
Not even, what about the Minotaur boys?
Even they were around 200. I think they've got a lower radius. Yeah, so they can spin it at a higher RPM, but I think they were around 8,900 RPM. They were the fastest spinning thing. But even they were just around 200 miles an hour.
Okay.
It's not all it's cracked up to be. It's a lot of bragging.
So basically, everyone's doing 200.
Yeah, and in fact,
making up their theoretical mass. Yeah. Their theoretical, what's the word?
What limit. Would like it to be? Yeah. In fact, some people get into trouble chasing the highest tip speed that they can possibly achieve and undergear their weapon so it actually doesn't work. Or that they could never reasonably get up to that speed in a match because they won't have 15 to 20 seconds where no one's hitting them.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think back. Who was the robot that didn't make it on? Had the Prius motor.
Oh, the dentist. The dentist ended up with a motor, I think, from Slovenia. Called an MRAX. And it's an amazing motor by all accounts. It's usually for, gliders, like, ride-in electric-powered gliders.
Okay.
So it's theoretically, big air quotes here, theoretically like 100 horsepower, and they were going to run it at 300 volts and all this crazy business. But because they were chasing this, crazy power, they ended up not being able to get it to work reliably because they had some funny controller, and the controller had issues, and it was too big, and it was too heavy, and all these little challenges. And at the end of the day, Riobots shows up with Minotaur, and they've been using a system more or less like that for the better part of a decade, and it just works, and it dishes out the pain. And why would you complain about having that? Why try to get more? It's just going to make it harder to control, more unreliable, more dangerous for itself. It's a silly contest that we all partake in.
Yeah, is what happened to them kind of a situation where they go chasing? I don't want to say there's standard parts for building fighting robots, but they're kind of looking for an exotic. Yeah, kind of a component that's going to give them the edge. And
let me be first to say that I am just as guilty as they are about wanting to find the next big thing. But you're right, there are some things that people know work. Big E-Tech motors like Carbide had, Nightmare had on BattleBots, Tombstone uses a variation on it. Those work. And they work reliably and consistently, and there's lots of data about how to use them and which configurations work and what contactors to use or what speed controllers you can use. And
I mean, I'm right in saying Gabe got in touch with you about programming his ESC for Sabertooth, right?
Right, yeah. So, there's some value in choosing a system that people already have some experience with, especially if you don't have any, because when you show up to the event, they're there and they will help you. But some of us want to find the next big thing, want to have a little bit more power and a little bit of lighter package, and want to go brushless or want to go with a Prius motor, and we let ourselves go down this very bad road of trying to chase impossible numbers.
I mean, it's the kind of craziness that doesn't really, I don't think it kind of appears on Robot Wars.
Yeah, and you know what? That's probably a good thing. I think Carbide was using the MPC motors for drive, and Nuts was using them. But, that works. Why try to go find some really expensive, if you find something that's cheap and available to you, more power to you. But why spend, hundreds or thousands of dollars on an untested thing that may not work, and it's hard to do, and their support staff is in a different country that doesn't speak your language. And
I mean, at the end of the day, you've got enough to worry about.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
Without all that.
Building a robot that doesn't fall apart is a challenge in itself, and so why make it more complicated?
Do you think that's something you have to accept at some point?
Yeah, I try to ignore that as much as possible. But every year, we've been trying different things, and sometimes you hit gold, and sometimes you strike out. And like,
how outlandish are those things, though?
Well, we've concluded after this year that we don't like our brushless motor in our weapon. Because we had some reliability issues with it. We could make it work at the event, but it was just a hassle. And why torture ourselves with this thing that doesn't really work and is expensive when there are alternatives that are cheaper and more reliable?
Okay. Right. I think we've done that question. I think that's all we had question-wise.
Cool.
If you have any questions, and I believe, are we having you back next week on Saturday? You coming back for some BattleBots?
On Thursday. Yeah, I'll be in this episode. I really want to tell you what happens, but I can't.
Do you have an amazing fight coming up?
It is spectacular. It is.
Do you want to come on Inside the Bot and talk about it?
I could definitely come in and talk about it. It is. I will say that we use a unorthodox method of doing something.
Okay. Well, let's not give too much away.
I'll say.
We'll have you on Saturday's show.
Sounds good. So
it'll be me, you, Ed Hoppett.
Cool.
If you have any questions for Mr. Will Bales or Mr. Ed Hoppett about Photon Storm or Storm 2, his return to Robot Wars, and Will about his walking lobster, or
I'm going to have to make this now. Everyone's going to make me do it.
I want to see the cats by Saturday. And
I already have the turtle version.
Oh god! Oh yes,
they're online.
I saw that. The Blastoise.
Yes, that's the Blastoise.
For anyone who doesn't know, Will he's designed the Blastoise robot.
Yep.
And it's going to be in BattleBot Season 3.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So if you have any questions for Will or Ed, email them in insidethebot@gmail.com, and we'll be sure to figure out what's going on in Will's mind.
If you can figure it out, you let me know.
So we've got BattleBots on Saturday. That's going to be exciting. We've got Heat B on Tuesday. We haven't got a guest lined up for that yet, but Gabe will be back, which is always exciting. And I'm sure Will be listening in.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, everyone, for listening in. Thank you, Mr. Will Bales, for your time.
It was a pleasure.
And I hope you're enjoying Robot Wars. And we wish you all the best on BattleBots. I know it's already happened, but we don't know what happened.
Well, maybe if everyone votes for us instead, they'll change the editing or something.
Yeah, I'm sure they've got the power to do that.
Yeah.
There would be no uproar from the actual Giant Nut winner, right?
Who says it's not me?
oh well, yeah, there is that. Would you, if you were the winner, would you already have the Giant Nut somewhere concealed?
The winners of the awards, the Giant Nut and the Giant Bolts, already have those awards.
So someone somewhere in America,
or in the UK,
or in Brazil,
or in Australia, or Canada.
Hang on, Australia.
Yeah.
A death roll coming back in.
Oh, maybe not.
That's a spoiler. Right. So somewhere in the world is concealing one giant nut. Just think about that for a minute.
Yeah.
I wonder where it is. Hopefully down their trousers, because that would be the comical thing to do.
Well, we heard Paul Ventimiglia say that he wants 2 nuts.
Oof.
Yeah.
Is he already concealing one down his trousers?
Yeah, he has last year's from Bite Force.
Does he keep it down there, though?
If I was him, I would definitely have special pants to accommodate a 20-pound aluminum nut.
Do you think you'd sew in a giant nut sack?
I don't know if it'd be a sack as much as like a harness, but yes.
I'd definitely sew in a sack. And I think, thanks for listening. I've been Will Sedgwick.
I have been Will Bales.
And this has been Inside the Bot.
The giant nut sack.